raw materials come from somewhere. Maybe design research was done here. Maybe you had a warehouse somewhere in New Jersey where you brought these packages from China, repackaged it, and sold it as a value-added product. So there are all these pieces and all elements, and they all come under consumer product. And us, that is where we can actually make the last, we have the last say in our consumer. We can really drive the industry on what we can say. So that is that's our paradigm we want to work with. So if we take this consumer product idea, then how do you want to look at it? We want to look at it from product life cycle. I'm sure all of us have fridges at home, dishwashers and so forth. And if you look at it, we go spend maybe $100 more when we see this tag on the fridge that, it is using less energy. But there is one thing missing from that picture. We never ask, how did they actually build this fridge? Did they build it in the right way? Maybe it is a good thing that it is using less kilowatt, so I'm going to pay less. But do I know how they built it? It was transported from China. Look, there's a lot of gas and oil, whatever was used for it to bring it from China here. So just by looking one stage of a product life cycle, we can't say we see the whole thing. So you really need to see the whole thing. And only then you can say, okay, am I really getting something of a value? So for that purpose, you need to look into the life cycle of products. You can't just look at one stage of it. From the place you design. See, if you are designing a product, you're using energy, you're using lighting, you are using rooms and whatever. And then you make it. When you make a product, you have several components. Components are coming from different places. These components in different places where energy was used. Land was used, water was used. So you really have to look at this whole picture and then come out with if there is a value. So our holistic approach is saying, look at the consumer products, look at their life cycle. Okay, don't miss anything in that life cycle. And when you look at the life cycle, then you'll really see the whole picture. So our holistic approach is going to take this energy and ecological footprints of consumer products throughout their life cycle. And the fact is that if you look at every stage of life cycle, it has its own supply chain. Now, looking at manufacturing, it's very easy. So suppose I'm making dishwasher, I'm the last final assembly of that in my plant. But the components, and if you think of the components like the motors come from somewhere, the housing comes from somewhere, piping comes from somewhere, the electronics comes from somewhere else. And then I put all of them together. So I am the assembly plant, but all these pieces are coming. So you really have to look at all this. And that is what we are talking about, the supply chain. Now, the transportation has its own supply chain, okay? When you have this truck moving from one place to another place, there is a supply chain for it, and so on. And the last but not the least is the disposal of all this, which has its own supply chain. So you may have a very good product for the usage, for the maintenance, but not so good when you want to get rid of it. And we know that. I've been trying to get rid of my fridge. It's sitting in my garage, and I'm stuck with it. So, how do we want to look at this? I think it's a consumer product, so it has to be driven by market. Now, we are not saying that's only the market. Going back to our previous talk, I mean, there are government roles and all that, and we are not saying it has to be just the market. So it has to be market-driven, there has to be some tax incentives, and there has to be some government regulations. But we want to focus right now, from a technical point of view, we want to focus on the market-driven aspects of it and the tax incentives, because all it is that tax incentive is a revenue for a producer of a product, or it is a price reduction from a consumer point of view. So you can always look at it from that point. Next one, please. This actually shows, you may not be able to read it, but this whole life cycle of it. And actually you can open it up so much, it really goes. It is not infinite, it's finite, but it is big. So I just want to show you that we are trying to build this whole model of how if you take a product and you have to actually map all the stages of it and then look and see how this whole thing opens up and you actually have the whole life cycle and overall the supply chains of it. Next one, please. Okay, so the market-driven approach will be what? If we want to take, I always use this $2 example with my team. So suppose that suppose I did a market study and I say, okay, I can sell this product for $2 more if I show to my consumers, and I'm assuming they're educated enough about the environment, and they are, many people are. I mean, we really don't, I mean, we take this for granted, but it's out there, people know it. And I have examples for you. We all go, or at least some of us go buy organic foods. If you said 15 years ago you would pay 10, 15, 20% more for organic foods, maybe you would laugh. But today you go to Whole Foods, people are there from across all economic spectrum, and they are paying more for something that, now I don't want to discuss with you, argue with you on how these organic foods are made, but the fact is that there is a label there, it's organic food, and you are paying for it. By the same token, you are paying more for hybrid rent-a-car. Go to some areas like in LA, in New York, you may be willing to pay $10, $15 per day for hybrid rent-a-car. Why? Because people have become very conscious about these issues. So it is out there. It's not that we are talking from vacuum. The whole thing is, can I use that price elasticity? So if I can sell this for $10 more, if I can sell this dishwasher for $100 more. So the whole thing is this. Can I use this price elasticity in the market and create a balance? And by balance, what I mean is that somehow that price, that extra dollars that I can sell this for, somehow it has to be distributed down the supply chain and the life cycle of product. So I make the manufacturers happy, I make the consumer happy, and at the same time, I have a product which has a different value than what we are used to. See, you go buy a product because that product has some functionality, and that functionality has a value for you. And you pay for that price if the value of that product for you is higher than the price of the product. Otherwise, you wouldn't buy it. Now, we need to change this paradigm. So that's our recommendation. The next page, please. We need to look into products in different ways. We need to look at the products like the prices from the past. But this is, to us, is really the past. We need to look at the products. We need to add two new dimensions to the value of a product. One is energy footprint dimension. So every reductions that you do in footprint, it has to translate to some sort of a reward or some sort of a dollar value that I as a consumer willing to pay and you as a manufacturer willing to make it. So we have to create this balance. You can't just go out there and build whatever you want and nobody buys for it. Or I cannot as a consumer ask for things that you cannot do from a technology point of view or from a price cost benefit point of view. Somewhere we have to meet. And that is our goal. And finally, there is also this ecological, environmental footprint. So there are three dimensions that we are adding. That's really the paradigm we are looking at it, is that basically the price, the old price, the way we look at it, the energy footprint of it, and the ecology footprint of it. And with that, I'll stop my talk.